Hello and welcome to the big picture. A debate has begun in this country about the efficacy or otherwise of the dual power system being practiced for the last 9 years by the Congress-led UPA government. Ironically, the debate has gained momentum after difference of opinion within the Congress among its senior leaders came out in public. While Digvijay Singh feels that the dual power model of a different Prime Minister and a Congress President is a failure, the official spokesman of the party, Janardhan Dwivedi, asserted exactly the opposite. This open airing of such diametrically opposite views has obviously set the tongues wagging with various speculations. However, the issue is larger than just the present arrangement in the Congress party. Dual power model is not new to this country, as it was evident right from independence when Nehru was the Prime Minister and somebody else was the Congress President. It has also been practiced in other parties too, including the BJP as well as the Communist parties. The Shiv Sena Supremo late Bal Thackeray also wielded enormous power without holding office. But the debate obviously takes a different shape when it comes to the Congress party. We will discuss today why it is so and whether dual power system is the best for governance in a democracy. To discuss this, I have with me Shankar Aiyar, Congress MP and a former Union Minister, Nilotpal Basu, Central Committee member of the CPIM, Nirmala Sitharaman, BJP spokesperson, and Prof. Zoya Hasan, Center for Political Studies, JNU, and author of the recent book, Congress After Indira. Welcome to all of you. Let me first go to Shankar Aiyar. Mr. Shankar Aiyar, this whole debate has suddenly, cropped up because what seems to be there seems to be difference within your own party among very senior leaders about this whole system of dual power model, which has been practiced for the last 9 years. Why this confusion now?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask Digvijay why he thought it was an appropriate moment to bring up this point of view. As far as I can see, there is no problem whatsoever in the party and the government interacting, irrespective of who runs the party and who runs the government.
Right.
I do not know of any party or any government in any democratic system anywhere in the world where there isn't a certain distinction between the party and the government, but which is bridged by very deep and sustained interaction between the two sides. So I personally do not agree with Digvijay that the system is not working. It does seem to be working, and I'm sure that even if there were a change in incumbency of the Prime Minister after the next election, nevertheless, whoever is the Prime Minister would have to keep in touch with the party. For example, when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India, he was also the President of the party.
Right.
But he found it impossible to handle both at the same time, which is why he first appointed Arjun Singh
as
the working president of the party, and then made other arrangements for the party to continue functioning, but of course to be in close rapport, close touch with him.
But Mr. Aiyar, is this a problem of the Congress party that it is not used to having two power structures? Is there a problem there? The rank and file of the party,
No,
which
not at
I'm
all.
talking
I
about.
don't think there's any problem there at all. Why do I say there's no problem at all? Is that most of the time the party and the government are in harmony with each other. There are times when this harmony breaks down,
Right.
but channels of communication have to be kept open. Let me give you the example, for instance, of the Hindu code bills in the 1950s.
Right.
The government was very keen on pushing them. There were elements in the party that were not keen on pushing them.
Right.
And they found in the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, an ally. And therefore there had to be this discussion between the two. Or to go back even earlier, in 1950, the party president became, Purushottam Das Tandon.
Yes.
And his point of view on the relationship between secularism and the nationhood of India was completely different to that of Jawaharlal Nehru. And yet it was necessary for the party to remain, for the government to remain. And so there was a very, very intensive interaction between the two until eventually Jawaharlal Nehru prevailed both in the government and in the party.
Right.
So I really don't know what the problem is. We are bound to have differences of opinion, or at any rate nuances of opinion, as between the party and the government. And the whole point of setting up channels of communication is to harmonize these two positions.
Okay. I mean, what you were saying, what is the problem? The problem is that probably was that, in the intervening years after Nehru, there was this concentration of power in the Prime Minister, who was also the Congress. But anyway, we will come back to you, Mr. Aiyar. Nilotpal, this arrangement has been on for 9 years. You people were part of this arrangement for the first 4.5 years. You think that this system has worked well, or do you think, as Digvijay says, that this is a system which cannot work well, or has been a failure?
Girish, the situation is really tragicomic, because I agree with Mr. Aiyar that you see, in a democracy based on political party system, there will always be this difference between the party and the government.
Right.
So this is not a new invention that Mr. Digvijay Singh has really discovered at long last. But right now these issues are being forced in the foreground because the Congress party and the government has very little to offer in terms of pointing out what kind of issues, what kind of policies need to be taken up so that the burning problems of the people can be addressed. For example, issues of price rise or
Nilotpal,
for example, corruption. Now to deflect public attention,
okay,
all this bunkum is being brought together with such vigor.
No, you call it bunkum, but whether the system, the dual power system, is it ideal for a democracy? Is it the best thing for governance? That's the question.
I mean,
the larger question. I'm asking the larger question.
In a parliamentary democracy, you have an elected government and you have a political system. I mean, sometimes the two positions may converge. The head of a political party who are ruling the government and the Prime Minister, but essentially the two are different offices, and at some point of time there can be some convergence, but essentially the two are different entities.
Okay. I mean, Communist Party has always functioned on those lines. Anyway, Nirmala, it's very interesting that your party leader, Mr. Arun Jaitley, at some time back, couple of weeks back, made that this dual power system has not worked as far as this UPA government is concerned. But BJP believes in dual power system, right?
No, first of all, I want you to tell me what you mean by the dual power system, which you've been elaborating on all the while.
The dual power system, according to what the latest controversy raised by Digvijay Singh, now countered by Janardhan Dwivedi, and because of which this whole debate has begun.
One thing here, parties' interaction with the government is one thing. Every party which gets the mandate to govern will have its interaction with the government, and that there is no question on that, there is no debate on that. But the debate is now, for the last 8 years, the BJP and I'm sure several political parties have been highlighting how this whole issue of dual power center under the UPA dispensation has become a very big issue or a hurdle towards having better transparency and accountability. It is on that this model becomes a burden on governance. Why? You have a chairperson of UPA who is the president of the Congress, who also is the chairperson of what is called the National Advisory Council, right, which substitutes many of the ministerial work as though the mandate is given for not so much to govern, but also the taking away or as they say in today's jargon, outsourcing of
NAC is a recommendatory body. It doesn't have any executive powers.
I'm aware of that.
Right.
Very clearly, a lot of functions of the ministries have been outsourced to the NAC. And when it comes to the question of integrating many of the suggestions of the NAC with that of the ministries, there is a lot of difficulty. Executive finds it difficult to accommodate, and therefore a lot of time is lost. And as a result, sometimes you don't even know some of the projects which are coming through, for which the ministries do not have the data, the financing or funding gets a bit difficult. The issue, therefore, is the Prime Minister, who actually has to be answering many of the questions for issues which are arising in governance-related matters, does not answer because the compulsions are being indirectly or very covertly suggested that it is the pressure from somewhere else. And that person and that individual or that group of individuals through whom many things are happening or is being attempted to put through are out of the realm of accountability. And therefore, let us not therefore blanket take this twin power sharing model as applicable under Nehru, as applicable under Vajpayee.
So your
or
problem
anybody
is with the present model.
Absolutely. I think
and
this,
you don't
if
have
anything.
Otherwise you don't have a problem with the model as such.
No, let us not therefore compare this model with any other model which may prevail, which may not prevail. But this model, which till today has been a model of informal arrangement and so-called, that's how things would work here, has become an issue, although the opposition has been saying all the while. Today it's become an issue because internally they started voicing it.
Absolutely. Zoya, it's very interesting we have heard, but you have a very strong view. In your latest book which you wrote, you have dealt with this issue quite extensively. You say that in the UPA 1, this worked very well, but UPA 2, it's not working. Why do you say that?
Well, I think it worked quite well in UPA 1. It's obvious, as I think Shankar Aiyar just said, that there was significant differences on a number of issues, from issues of social policy, whether it's Narega or, for example, the nuclear deal. But those differences were reconciled because I think the UPA was held together by a certain ideological position. And I do think that the outside support of the left contributed immensely towards providing a certain coherence. But that's one issue. The larger issue that you've raised about dual power center, I think, is an important one, because we must remember that parliamentary governments everywhere in the world are party-based.
Right.
So parties are important. Now, I think here the issue is controversial only because the party president, in this case, in the case of the Congress, appears to be more powerful than the Prime Minister, who is not a conventional politician. So that is the reason why there is, there is some controversy about it. That's point number one. Point number two, I think if you really look at the history of the Congress over the past 60, 65 years, they've really followed two models of party-government relationship. One is a model that was practiced during the Nehru era, and that is a relationship of mutuality between the party and the government, where even though the executive was more important, the government was more important, but it was a government which was very clearly based on certain party policies.
Absolutely.
Then, of course, there was a second model where party became subservient to the government.
Right.
And that is which is what you mentioned in your introductory remarks, where there was a considerable concentration of power in the government.
Right.
Now, in some ways, I think what has happened under UPA 1, which was, of course, due to special circumstances, because Mrs. Gandhi, the most popular leader of the Congress, declined the post of Prime Minister, and therefore the two power centers. But the fact is that this is something which is healthy in a way. Separation of party and government is healthy. That is what you have everywhere. But I think the difference here, and which is what is different, let us say, between India and Britain, or India or many other European countries which also have a separation of party and government, is that normally the person who is the leader of the party and who wins the election for the party would be the head of the government, which is not the case here. But I think the system seems to have worked quite well, and it continues to work well. I would say, if I have said in my book that it didn't work so well, but when I really actually look at the past 4 years, it's worked, even under UPA 2, it's worked reasonably well.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we will go into a very short break, but we'll come back, and there are many other issues which we will discuss. Shankar Aiyar will be answering a few questions which has been raised by Nirmala. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the dual power system, the controversy raised over this in the last few days over the statements made by the Congress leaders. Mr. Shankar Aiyar, coming to you, Nirmala raised 2-3 issues. She says that you can't equate the model which we're having now with the past in the times of Nehru and all these things. Now she says that she raises specific problems of accountability and transparency when it comes to the present system.
I don't know why it bothers her. It doesn't bother me at all. Because as far as I think the record clearly demonstrates, every single decision of the government, whether it has been taken by them without much consultation with the NAC, or whether the initiative actually came from the NAC, eventually has to be defended by the government, by the Prime Minister himself and by his colleagues in Parliament.
Right.
And not only in Parliament but also in the media. And I know of no decision taken by the government from which the government has resigned saying we didn't really want to do it. It was Sonia Gandhi who wanted it done. Yes, there is a process of consultation. Yes, there are positions taken by the NAC which the government balks at. But eventually there is a form of dialogue and compromise, and eventually neither gets their initial way completely. And that is as it should be. So I don't see that there's any lack of accountability here. The accountability that the NAC has is to the chairperson of the UPA. But the chairperson of the UPA is responsible to the whole of the UPA.
Right.
And it is the UPA that forms the government.
Okay.
Insofar as Zoya's point is concerned, we didn't ask the left to go. In fact, we begged the left to become a part of the UPA. And if only they had the good sense to do so, perhaps many of the things that upset friends of mine like Nilotpal, Basu may not have happened.
Mr. Aiyar.
But it was a decision they took to support the UPA from the outside, not to be part of it, or rather to be part of it, but not to support, not to be part of the government. And subsequently, it was they who walked out on a specific issue.
Mr. Aiyar,
and I think their absence is felt.
Mr. Aiyar, I'm glad you're being very frank about their absence being felt, but the issue is, the difference between UPA and UPA 1 and 2, now that you don't have a national common minimum program, is that something which is affecting this, or is that the issue why you see these kind of problems cropping up?
Well, to continue being utterly frank with you, possibly at the cost of my own political career, let me say that almost all the problems of UPA 2 have their roots in UPA 1.
Yes.
And therefore, this kind of false distinction between UPA 1 having been a great success and the UPA 2 not having been such a great success is, I think, one that deserves rethinking and revisiting.
Okay.
Insofar as UPA 2 is concerned, at least as of now, there's very little that they have done which has brought about the reprimand of public opinion.
So, okay, before you jeopardize your career further, let me go to Nilotpal. Nilotpal, it's very interesting what Shankar Aiyar says. He says that whatever problems they are facing in UPA 2 was happened in UPA 1. So what is this big thing saying that UPA 1 it was a success and UPA 2 was not a success?
Yes, I will respond to this question, but before that I have a very, very simple question for Nirmala ji.
Okay.
Where does she figure the RSS in a situation where such a dual power is exercised by the NDA and NDA-led government?
No, but she didn't oppose it. She didn't oppose the dual power system. Please understand that. She opposed this present arrangement here.
But in that scheme of dual power, where does RSS figure in? That was my question.
And may I just say something to this?
Yes.
No,
one second, Nilotpal, let Zoya, she wants to, have
just
a small
make
reaction.
one point apropos to what Nilotpal has said, which I think is a very important point. There are different kinds of dual power centers. If you look at the BJP RSS dual power center, the RSS is unelected. Whereas in the case of this dual power center, you can at least say that whether it is Sonia Gandhi or the chairperson of the UPA, she is certainly not unelected.
Nirmala,
It's
quickly,
very convenient
quick
for
response.
three people.
No, okay, I'll come back to
Girish,
Nilotpal,
I
I'll come
wanted
to
to
you.
respond to what Mani was
No,
saying.
I'll come to you. Let Nirmala respond to what Zoya said immediately. Yes.
No, I started my entire argument on the question of this power center, twin power center arguments, which the Congress within itself is questioning. And that's the core of the debate today. I'll gladly answer questions about
Yes.
RSS and the twin power.
Absolutely.
That model of debate,
I agree
that
with you.
model of power
Yes, I agree with you.
sharing, definitely at an appropriate time. But
Yes.
today, on the very same arguments on which the opposition parties have been questioning this model of power sharing, wherein the Prime Minister is completely bereft of answering powers, explaining powers.
But
And-
Mani says that he has to respond to
no,
all
three
these things
people
in
have said
Parliament.
it, and you're not allowing me to say my point without an interruption. Is that in this case, not just the BJP, not just the opposition parties in the Parliament, everywhere you have repeatedly assessment on the Prime Minister and his authority is completely today diluted. And in this, if the constitutional authority Prime Minister is devoid of the powers that he should have, and then to say the other of the twin is an elected representative, never mind, but who's not even in one debate of the Parliament explained what she has as her idea of the governance, her idea of why uncontrollable prices are bothering the common man. Okay. You never come to hear from her.
Okay,
But at the same time, the Prime Minister doesn't speak.
I think you made a point quite effectively. Nilotpal, yes.
The point I was making is what Mani is saying, there is an element of truth. Yes, the trouble started for the UPA too in the manner in which UPA 1 broke up with the withdrawal of support by the left, and that was on a principal question of a deviation from the common minimum program. Now, Mani must also realize that today we have a situation where we do not have a common minimum program. We have a coalition government with just 29% votes in favor of Congress, and virtually a one-party government is there in place. The second question is that what the point Nirmala ji was making, I think if there is a problem, it is fully the making of the Prime Minister himself. I mean, who stopped him from answering? And that is the core of the issue. Why BJP or Congress raising these issues of structures of power, models, individuals and so on and so forth is because they are absolutely clueless about how to address the concerns that is bothering the people, whether it is crisis or corruption.
Yes,
no,
yes.
Equally, very quickly. On the one hand, you have the Prime Minister completely, forfeiting his responsibility to answer. And on the other hand, if it is indeed a twin power sharing, the other side also remains completely silent. So who else is going to answer is one thing. And of course, Nilotpal, who took the liberty.
I think there is a miscomprehension about the way the government functions.
No, very quickly.
Let her finish.
I'm sure
very quickly, I want to say that the government, the executive is accountable to the legislature. That is very clear and simple in our
That's why I said she doesn't answer in the Parliament.
And if the head of the executive is not answering, it is he who is to be scarcely
let me get money in on this. Mani Shankar Aiyar, it's very interesting that when Digvijay Singh makes his remarks, he says that the PM must have authority to function. He says this. Does it imply that the PM has not been having authority to function all these 9 years, or no? What does it mean?
I am not.
You are not. I know you will say I am not Digvijay Singh. I can't.
You really have asked him. I don't know what he means.
Yes.
As far as Nirmala's question is concerned, I think it's a complete travesty of the truth to say that the Prime Minister never speaks. Yeah. The Prime Minister doesn't jabber at every opportunity, I agree. But when he believes in the propriety of using Parliament as the forum where he explains himself. And I know of no matter on which the Prime Minister was required to speak when he didn't speak. He perhaps didn't speak at the time that Nirmala's colleagues wanted him to speak. But there is no issue at all, name one, where he did not eventually say what he wished to say. And in any case, there's a collective responsibility to the functioning of the Council of Ministers. And all our ministers are constantly speaking on behalf of the government when this opposition permits Parliament to run.
Okay.
And if the opposition disrupts Parliament all the time, then naturally the number of opportunities they'll get to put the Prime Minister or his ministers on the mat decreases. But that's their political technique.
Okay.
And we can do nothing about it
Okay.
except plead that diplomatic propriety should inform the proceedings of our Parliament.
Okay. Nirmala, I think he has a point. You can't expect the Prime Minister to speak every time others want him to. He speaks at his own chosen time.
I'm sure he does. And that's the reason we don't hear him telling us as to why, when he was the minister, such a fantastic Colgate happened and we've not heard anything from him yet.
Today he spoke about
no,
it.
Wait a minute,
Today
Girish, this is unfair.
in the CIA
you have
thing,
three different people, all from the same alliance till to UPA 1, trying to praise and pat each other's back about how left them. They didn't leave them on price
No, but
rise.
we were running out of time. We're running out of
You
time.
may run out of time, but it is unfortunate that this debate consists more people in favor of that rather than those who can explain as to why this will not work. And that one person doesn't seem to get the opportunity. Never mind. You can have your conclusion.
You had
Okay.
plenty of opportunity.
Zoya,
I still was cut
Zoya, last
short
words to you.
when I was about to ask Nilotpal something. I think panelists can have their view.
Zoya, last words to you. So this is a system which should continue. This is the best system for democratic governance.
Well, I think separation of party and government must
whichever
continue.
party is in power.
Well, we should have a party-based government. Governments have to consult the party. Any government policy is based on party thinking, on party policy. So I think certainly, but there has to be consultation between government and party. So in that sense,
And
I think
more transparency and accountability, as Nirmala says.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have completely run out of time. This is a debate which I'm sure will get heated up as the elections come near. Since this has been raked up by the Congress party leaders themselves, this is a debate which will continue for some time, and we'll keep a close watch and come back to it out sometime. Thanks to all my guests, Shankar, Aiyar, Nilotpal, Basu, Nirmala, Sitharaman, and Professor Zoya, Hasan. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, The Big Picture, same time tomorrow.